Welcome to Diplomacy and International Relations, a podcast focused on international relations, global politics, and Danish political developments. I mean, things are moving incredibly fast right now, so before we jump in, please make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening.
Yeah, definitely do that.
And you should also follow iCulture Talking on Instagram for essential updates because the landscape we're mapping today is it's shifting daily. So today we're doing a deep dive into a stack of really timely, highly sensitive sources from July 2026 regarding the Middle East.
Right, and there is a lot to cover.
There really is. Our mission today is to untangle this massive geopolitical bombshell surrounding the U.S.-Saudi nuclear agreement. We'll also be looking at the concept of sacred statecraft driving the Abraham Accords and examining the intense pressures on the historic status quo of Jerusalem's holy sites.
And just to set the tone right up front for you listening, these sources contain some very politically charged and, frankly, contradictory viewpoints.
Yeah.
So our goal today is strictly to analyze the factual reporting and the concepts. We are not here to endorse any political side, right? We just want to unpack what the sources are actually saying.
Exactly. Impartial analysis all the way. So let's start with the most immediate hard news event. I mean, we have to understand the technical reality of the U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear deal before we can even begin to understand the political chaos that followed it.
Yeah, because structurally speaking, it is a fascinating situation. According to reporting by Reuters and The Hill, in late July 2026, U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright and his Saudi counterpart, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, they signed what is known as a 123 agreement.
Right.
And this is basically a decades-long, multi-billion-dollar framework. It's explicitly designed to help Saudi Arabia build a civilian nuclear program.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when you look at the actual text of the agreement versus what was said on TV, there is a glaring factual contradiction. I mean, it's huge.
Oh, absolutely.
According to Reuters and foreign policy experts like Andrea Stricker from the Foundation for Defensive Democracies, or the FDD, the signed agreement allows for a 2-year study to determine if Saudi Arabia can enrich uranium. And it apparently bypasses SNAP UN inspections.
Which is a huge detail.
Right. But then, literally right after, President Trump goes on social media and gives TV statements explicitly claiming that, quote, no enrichment of material will take place. So, which is it?
What's fascinating here is that this is a stark contradiction between a technical state agreement and political framing.
Yeah.
I mean, mechanically, a 123 agreement establishes the legal criteria for sharing U.S. nuclear tech.
Yeah.
So either the administration is utilizing a completely different technical definition of enrichment, maybe drawing a hard line between, low-enriched uranium for power and highly enriched weapons-grade material, or the political messaging simply does not align with the literal text of the signed agreement.
But wait, isn't this like buying a car where the dealer and the manufacturer are giving you completely different contracts? I mean, if the deal allows the U.S. to operate the facility, aren't we putting future administrations in a position where they might have to, bomb their own plant if the Saudis pursue weaponization?
Well, that is exactly the fear that non-proliferation experts are highlighting. You're giving them the kitchen and teaching them how to bake bread, but those same ovens can be tweaked to make something entirely different.
Exactly.
And the sources point out that the deal doesn't require Riyadh to sign the IAEA's additional protocol. Normally, inspectors only get to look at formally declared facilities. They only go where they are invited.
Right. So if they have a secret warehouse 50 miles away, the inspectors can't just knock on the door.
Precisely. The additional protocol was designed to fix that by allowing unannounced inspections. So without it, experts from the FDD argue you are creating a massive verification gap in a highly volatile region.
Which is terrifying when you consider the historical precedent. I mean, the sources mention the AQ Khan network in Pakistan, where civilian research was basically used as a cover for a weapons program.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have this highly sensitive technical deal, right? And then suddenly it turns into a massive political bombshell. Because if we move from the technical side to the political side, the statecraft here is just being wielded as leverage.
It really is. The pivot was incredibly fast.
Yeah, going back to the Hill article, it points out that neither the U.S. Energy Department nor Saudi Arabia mentioned any contingencies in their official press releases. Like, zero. It was presented as a done deal.
Just technical cooperation, full stop.
Right. But then, less than 24 hours later, Trump announced that the entire nuclear deal is totally subject to Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords. He literally said if they don't join, the deal is off.
And we need a crucial status check here on how that actually works.
Right.
While the Saudi nuclear agreement is officially announced and signed, it doesn't just instantly become law. It has to undergo a 90-day review period by the U.S. Congress.
So the ink is dry, but the door is still open.
Exactly. Lawmakers can pass joint resolutions to block it. So Trump's newly added political condition could severely delay or just completely block its implementation.
But if tying the nuclear deal to the Abraham Accords was such a massive diplomatic victory, why wouldn't the administration have touted it in the very first press release? I mean, doesn't this surprise move suggest the Saudis and maybe even U.S. advisors were just caught completely off guard?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights a high-stakes leverage game. It shows a contradiction between technical statecraft and political conditioning. The U.S. knows Saudi Arabia desperately wants this nuclear capacity to match Iran.
Right, they need it for their energy grid, but also for regional prestige.
Exactly. So the administration is taking this signed technical agreement and basically holding it hostage. They are trading nuclear capabilities for diplomatic recognition.
Which means we really need to look at the Abraham Accords themselves. I mean, if a multi-billion-dollar nuclear deal is being used as ransom, why are the Accords the ultimate political prize?
Well, let's look at where the Accords stand right now.
Yeah, let's do a status check on that. Because currently, in July 2026, the Abraham Accords are a firmly established framework. You've got Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. But Saudi normalization is still entirely hypothetical.
Right, it's still under negotiation.
And historically, the Saudis have conditioned normalization on a pathway to a Palestinian state based on 1967 borders, which Israel's current government completely rejects. So it's like an immovable object and an unstoppable force.
And this is where the RACI 22 analysis comes in, which is just fascinating. They introduce this concept of sacred statecraft. This isn't just standard diplomacy, they call it spiritual diplomacy.
Right, they are intentionally positioning the Prophet Abraham at the center of the political discourse.
Exactly. They are weaponizing the soft power of religious tolerance. By coining the term Abrahamism, the goal is to unite Muslims, Christians, and Jews under a shared ancestry. The idea is to bypass decades of territorial feuds.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like trying to settle a modern, highly contested property dispute by pulling out a 4,000-year-old family tree. Like, can appealing to religious ancestry actually substitute for international law and territorial realities?
Well, that is the core tension. Proponents say it encourages regional integration and economic prosperity.
Yeah.
It breaks psychological barriers.
Yeah.
But critics warn that substituting international legal vindication like UN Resolutions 242 and 338 with religious harmony sets a really complex precedent.
Because those UN resolutions are the bedrock of the legal consensus on borders,
Yep.
right? They are entirely secular.
Precisely. And if you replace hard law with soft faith, it changes how modern borders are recognized globally.
Okay, so if sacred statecraft is a theory happening in the boardrooms, how is this religious diplomacy actually playing out in physical reality? Because if we look at the status quo of Jerusalem's holy sites, there is a huge disconnect.
A massive disconnect. It's the difference between the legal theory and the reality on the ground.
Yeah. Doing a status check on the holy sites based on the World Council of Churches leaflet and the academic chapters from INSS Legally, the status quo of the holy sites exists as a normative arrangement. It's based on international humanitarian law, with the Hashemite kings of Jordan acting as the official custodians.
That is how it exists on paper, yes.
But the reality is completely different. According to WAFA and recent July 2026 statements from Pope Leo XIV, this status quo is under immense pressure. I mean, the Pope explicitly condemned unilateral decisions violating the holy places.
And it goes beyond just the Pope. We have global political leaders weighing in.
Right. Canadian PM Mark Carney and French President Emmanuel Macron publicly stated that preventing the Patriarch from entering the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a direct violation, and they restricted the Holy Fire ceremony to just 1,800 people.
Yeah, for a ceremony that normally hosts up to 10,000 pilgrims. And this restriction isn't just a ticketing issue. It's enforced through military cordons, barricades, and severe security checkpoints.
So what does this all mean? I mean, if the UN, the EU, and the US all agree this status quo exists on paper, but we have global leaders documenting that access is actively being restricted, isn't the legal arrangement effectively being dismantled in practice?
This raises an important question about enforcement. The arrangement legally exists, sure, but it is deeply, deeply politically contested. A legal right doesn't mean much if it's physically blocked by a barricade.
Exactly.
And you have to connect this back to the broader regional tension. I mean, the U.S. recently paused airstrikes on Iran in late July 2026, while violence in the West Bank continues. It shows just how fragile the intersection of religion, diplomacy, and physical security really is.
It's just a deeply interconnected ecosystem. So, to sort of recap the journey we've been on today, we've traced how a highly technical civilian nuclear agreement was suddenly, you know, just entangled in the political web of the Abraham Accords via a surprise social media post.
A very unexpected pivot.
Yeah, and then we explored the concept of sacred statecraft that's attempting to unite the region through shared religious ancestry. And finally, we grounded all of that in the highly contested physical reality of Jerusalem's holy sites, where that unity is severely lacking on the ground.
It really is a masterclass in the collision of theology and modern statecraft, and I think it leaves us with a really provocative thought to consider.
Yeah, what's your takeaway?
Well, if modern statecraft is increasingly relying on ancient religious figures and spiritual diplomacy to forge peace, what happens to global stability when those exact same religious narratives are utilized by non-state actors to justify the next conflict? If you validate theology as a substitute for international law, you can't really control who wields that theology next.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is an incredibly unsettling thought to leave on, because once you change the rules of engagement, anyone can use them. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this deep dive today. And to you listening, thank you for your time. Please remember to follow the podcast, follow iCulture Talking on Instagram for those daily updates. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please leave us a 5-star rating. It really is the best way to help expand our reach. Until next time.